The following program is intended for mature audiences.
Let me ask you a question. What do you get when a football gets down with your phone?
You sure you want your one question to be that stupid?
Let me ask you a question.
I have several questions.
You're listening to Basically a Sports Show.
Follow us on Twitter at Basically Sports.
Subscribe to our podcast on iTunes.
And check out every episode of the show at basicallysports.tumblr.com.
Now here's your hosts, Zach,
Greg, Mike.
And you're listening to Basically a Sports Show.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome to the 4th annual Ask Us Anything edition of Basically a Sports Show. As always, these are actual questions from actual listeners, and we will actually answer them. We got some from the boards, CCSLC, we got some from Facebook, and we got some via email, and as always, and a couple from PMs on the boards, and as always, if you do it via email or private message, you remain anonymous, and with that, shall we get started, boys?
Sounds good.
Our first question comes from a friend of the show, Dennis, LMU on the boards. And I can't wait to answer this. For my CHL brethren, and this is kind of an insider thing for just us and the guys that play in our league, but we're going to cover it anyway.
CHL, or Fantasy Hockey League.
Right. What are your opinions of having the Mighty Ducks of Anaheim as a team, and should there be something done about it? Who wants to go first?
I think we've made our opinion quite clear.
I don't think we've ever made it clear on the air, though.
Look, if we're doing a fantasy sports league, it's super lame to name your team after a real existing team. The Mighty Ducks of Anaheim aren't an entity, but the Anaheim Ducks are, and they wear the Mighty Ducks logos, and that's still part of their scheme and their history and all that. So, like, it's fantasy. Make it up. Do whatever the hell you want.
Or do what Mike and I did. Take defunct teams and bring them back. Like I use the Toledo Gold Diggers. Fine. Mike's the Montreal Maroons.
And it's worth noting that neither Greg nor myself nor KC Scout, who is the Kansas City Scouts, we don't just use the old teams look. Like
that's the other part, yep.
We're like, hey, it would be cool if, like, what would the Montreal Maroons look like today? Or what would the Toledo Gold Diggers look like today? And it's kind of playing around, and especially on, like, a forum like the community that we're based out of, which is dedicated to kind of sports.
I'd say even more so because of that.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. We've got a vibrant concept section. Like, I don't know. It kind of seems like either – make something yourself, or if you can't think of one, get someone else to. Like, and what's really bumming me out about it, and I should disclose that I'm the commissioner of this league, and so I kind of feel like it's a conflict of interest because Dennis.
Well, you can't do anything without
our votes,
without the votes of the people, and Dennis is also the fantasy commissioner overall. So
he is, which I'm wondering if this is Dennis winking to me, being like, if you want to press the issue, But
I will press the issue. They're not technically the Mighty Ducks of Anaheim anymore, but the Cincinnati Reds aren't the Cincinnati Redlegs anymore, but they used to be. It's still an existing franchise. Should something be done about it? Yes, I think that we as a league should say you have to find an identity. That you've got to do what the rest of us have done. This is nonsense.
If we wanted something done about it, we should have done it at the time.
All right. Well, let's move along here. From Habs Fan 1 on the boards, considering how they might be the most passionate crowd in the entire world when it comes to pro wrestling, does Montreal deserve a WrestleMania or a SummerSlam? Mike, I'm going to ask you because you're the wrestling expert of the bunch. Does Montreal deserve a WrestleMania or a SummerSlam?
Ideally, I would say yes. For SummerSlam, I will say definitely. The problem with WrestleMania is that they really like their big stadium show WrestleManias where they're not in arenas, they're in like football and baseball stadiums.
Yeah,
but haven't they done SummerSlam recently in Brooklyn and LA?
They did.
Yeah,
yes.
but that's not WrestleMania is like the Super Bowl. They need a big, 50, 60,000 seat place.
Yeah, well, yeah. For SummerSlam, I'm saying Montreal could definitely get a SummerSlam, but I'm saying WrestleMania. The big problem is that I don't think Montreal has an arena, that like a stadium that big to do it.
Yeah, the only thing I don't even know if Olympic Stadium even exists anymore. But even if it does, it's not good enough.
It does, and it's not good enough. I would say that if like the whole, like, okay, if the Expos ever come back, it's going to be because they got a new stadium,
right?
And the only way that WrestleMania, I think, happens in Montreal is if the Expos come back and they get a new baseball stadium.
Yeah, but even a baseball stadium, I think, wouldn't be, especially because, you're talking probably, at tops 40,000 seats. I don't think that's enough for WrestleMania. I mean, it might be. It would depend on if they let you use the outfield and the field and all that for seating.
Well, you have to keep in mind that a wrestling ring is pretty small, and so you do get a lot of seats on the field.
Yeah.
Montreal definitely should get a SummerSlam because, as Zach said, SummerSlam is traditionally in regular-sized arenas, and SummerSlam is the second biggest show of the year. So, yeah, they should definitely have one.
All right. Moving along from our friend Andy. This is a tough question. I don't know if I have an answer for this. Maybe you guys do. What's the biggest difference in the show now versus 3 years ago from our perspective? I don't know that it's really that different, is it? Probably little things like, this isn't going to sound right, but I think it's just that we're so comfortable with it now that I don't think we come into it so much worried about what we're going to talk about, where we used to sit down maybe and have what you would call like a pre-production meeting where we go, okay, what are we going to talk about this week? And now it's just kind of, we show up and whatever happens, happens. That's different, I suppose. And you could say for better or worse, depending on your perspective as a listener. But I don't use as many of the little Paul Stanley and chimp effects as I used to. That's something that's different.
The only difference that I can think of off the top of my head is that maybe 3 years ago, personally, I felt like sometimes it's, well, I gotta find time in my schedule to do this. I gotta make time, make sure I'm here. Can we do it here? Can we do it there? I gotta move around my stuff. And now I'm in a place where, like, no, this is just, it's what I do every Monday. Occasionally get to move it around if there is something that comes up for me, for Greg, for Mike. And, but generally it's just kind of,
definitely,
it's just part of my week every week.
It's in much more of a groove now in that respect than it was 3 years ago. Overall, I'd say it's essentially the same show. There are little changes here and there, but for the most part, I can't think of a whole lot that's changed. What about you, Mike? Anything you can think of?
I mean, the weather's nicer on my end.
Yeah, definitely.
I would definitely agree, though, saying that there's no pressure with coming up with things to talk about because, and this is just kind of generally speaking, when people start a podcast, and even for a few years after they start it, there's kind of this thing like, oh, I've got to have prepared remarks. And I think you kind of get into the feeling where it's like, I actually kind of don't. You slowly start to realize that a lot of what you prepared, you're not going to say, and, something else might come to mind that you want to talk about. We
did work a lot harder at having pre-prepared topics, but a lot of times, though, we would do that, and they would just go nowhere. Mm-hmm. And I've just found, I think we all three probably agree with this, it's just easier for us just to sit down, hit the call, and off we go. Maybe sometimes we get in a little bit of a rut. We might go over the same thing a few times here and there, but I think it just works better as just a natural conversation than trying to work this or that into it. Has there ever been a topic, this is still Andy, has there ever been a topic that each of you had a very different, perhaps even contentiously individual perspective on? I can only think of one thing, and I want to see if you guys come up with the same thing.
I can think of two instances.
Okay.
I can think of two topics. The first one is the whole Sunbelt fan versus Northern hockey fan kind of thing. I think Zach and I have talked about that from opposing sides, just when it comes to like the mentalities of fans and the why Sunbelt fans do the things they do, why Northern fans do the things they do. And then the other one that really stands out is Tom Brady versus Peyton Manning for like the quarterback of our times. So those are the two that, like, and again, that was Zach and I kind of taking each one of those two sides and trying to argue the point. And there's Greg in the middle saying they both suck because they're not Joe Montana.
Right. Yeah. So I think we do have a different viewpoint on that. The one that popped into my head after I thought about it a little while, we didn't really agree a whole lot on The Last Jedi. If you remember when we did the review show, we never got like mad at each other or anything, but none of us saw that movie the same way. We were all in different directions on it. Mm-hmm. And that was, but I don't know if it was like, contentiously, but it was like we didn't, usually with the Star Wars stuff, we're pretty much in general agreement. But that one, there was no. I can't even say we had a consensus on it. We were just all three coming at it from completely different perspectives.
And to be to be completely honest, I actually kind of liked that because it kind of gave us. I mean, I think it reflected the general mood because I've talked a lot about The Last Jedi with friends and family, and and of course there's a lot of stuff just in pop culture among like the Star Wars fan community where you just have to open up, YouTube and type in like Last Jedi and just see what pops up. And there's so many people coming at it from both sides. Like it's the greatest thing ever or it sucks. And I kind of liked that our show, and we didn't plan for this honestly, but I do love how our show was very it was very reflective, I guess.
Representative of what was going on. Yeah.
And it still is, I think. I still don't think there's been a consensus in the public space about that movie. And I'm going to admit, I don't want to revisit the topic. I'm just going to put it out there for the sake of it. My opinions of Last Jedi have kind of slowly degraded.
Mine too.
I'm not as fond of it as I was.
It finally showed up on Netflix back in June, and I was so excited. Yeah. I couldn't get through the first 10 minutes of it. I just said, you know what? I can't do this again.
Right, well, that happened to me too, because we had the argument about it for forever, but I still said no. You know what? It's still Star Wars. I'm still gonna want to sit there and watch it. So when I was going to New York last week, it was actually on the little in-flight entertainment thing in front of me. And I was kind of excited to get into it and be like, okay, I actually haven't watched this since it's come on Netflix, and I didn't buy the DVD yet, so this is my first time seeing it a bit. And yeah, I liked watching Poe Dameron do his thing with the X-Wing, and then immediately after that, I'm like, no. And then because Thor Ragnarok was also on the entertainment system, and I'm like, I'm on a plane, I kind of want to have a good time. Thor's going to be better for me right now.
Thor Ragnarok is a much better movie.
It's not even that it's a better movie one way or the other. It's a better experience to sit there like.
Yeah, you have fun. You have fun watching the movie. Who would have thought that's a novel concept?
I think
in theory, now that you can fast forward through the bad stuff of Last Jedi, you think, oh yeah, I'll still be able to get through it, but it doesn't have that same energy that you want to. I could sit down and watch Empire right now and not have a problem with it, even though it's the darkest of the original trilogy or whatever. Hell, to be perfectly honest, I could throw on Attack of the Clones right now and I wouldn't be that. I'm not going to be terribly invested, but I can have it on and watch it.
And honestly, it's so
I want
bad.
Last Jedi on that.
No.
Yeah.
I think a lot of it, personally for me, and maybe this is me, maybe this is me not giving the movie its fair shake, but fuck it, it's how I feel. This was my honest reaction, and I'm just going to put this out there. A lot of the attitudes of like when you learn about how the movie came about from a behind the scenes perspective, and when you hear about the way that Rian Johnson has kind of carried himself among fans, it kind of it taints it, because it's like, well, this I guess is interesting on its own, but now that I know why you did it, it kind of doesn't seem great. So I don't know.
I think it was one of those movies where when you're watching it and you're thinking, you got caught up in the moment, and like you, Mike, the further I got away from it, I'm like, it really, at this point, I'd have to watch it again to give you a more honest assessment. But like I said, I tried to watch it, and I was just like, I'm not ready for Rose and Finn and that whole bit. I'm just, when he did the prank phone call thing at the beginning, I'm like, yeah, I'm just not today. And I haven't been
By the way,
since.
When I was watching the beginning, the other thing that took me out of it was when he said, when they were doing the prank phone call thing, I think he doesn't call him General Hux.
Doesn't he? Does it?
To me, as I paused it, I rewound it, It could be, just a lot of the airplane noise or whatever. But it sounded like he's saying holding for General Hugs, Hugs.
That's what I thought too.
Making a joke.
Yeah.
I don't know.
The same thing.
But as I'm kind of thinking about it now, I think if I could come in like halfway through, I would watch it. Like if it's one of those things where like if it was on cable and you stopped and it was halfway through, yeah, sure, I'd jump in on it. Like if it was on HBO, not if it had commercials. But there's nothing that makes me want to sit down and watch it from start to finish.
No, me either. All right.
Which is terrible to say about a Star Wars movie, but hey.
Yeah, it's just, I think our opinions, at first we were, like Mike said, representative of what was going on outside the show. We've kind of lined up and kind of all feel the same way about it now.
I'd love to watch Solo right now. I'd watch Solo all the way through.
Solo was fun. It was fun. I dig it.
I would watch Rogue One again, and I don't know that that Rogue One was that great, but it just didn't sit with me like Last Jedi did, where it just kind of, I don't know. Finally, from Andy, what's the biggest robbery in GTOV history? I'm sure there's been a lot of them. I can't think of any off the top of my head.
I know that off the top of my head.
Okay.
It was Jupiter losing out to the statue, was it?
I don't remember who Jupiter lost to in the first one.
No, but that had a great life of its own. I don't know if that's a robbery. That's just one of the great upsets. I'm thinking I'm trying to think of somebody that was in the Final Four or in an Elite Eight that was just like, are you kidding me? What are you people doing?
I thought that 2 years ago you had your Final Four entry kind of got screwed like that, but I can't remember.
The Moose Leg?
No, that wasn't the Moose Leg. It was the year before that.
Oh, it was it BB-8?
I don't remember, but I don't remember. I mean, there've been a lot of them that we just shake our heads and go, what the hell happened? But I can't think of the biggest one.
Yeah.
That's the thing with the GTOV. It's like it kind of, when you're in it, like when we're doing it, I can remember a lot about it, but like when we're months away from it, it kind of fades and I don't remember a whole lot about it. But,
I got one for you because this one affected me personally. Cosmic Turtle losing to Teddy Roosevelt to Strider War Ogre. That one stung for me.
I'm sure there's been some early round stuff too that were just ridiculous upsets. But I wish I could think of a better answer, but I just can't come up with one. Moving along, another one from Dennis. Since Zach and Greg are both Angels fans, what would it take to get Greg out here for a meetup at the Big A? I'd make that 45-minute drive. Well, a plane ticket and a hotel room would do the trick on my end.
Yeah, I mean, I'm here.
Yeah.
It's kind of up to you.
I honestly, Dennis, and to you too, Zach, I think, don't forget, I'm a lot older than you guys. I may not be that much fun to hang out with. So I'm just going to be straight up about that. But
Greg just wants to sit there and watch baseball. Like he doesn't want to have no conversation.
Right. Don't bother me. I'm keeping the scorebook.
Admiring the beauty of the game. Wow, the fluidity of that second base.
Honestly, we probably wouldn't shut up through that. We'd probably bother the people around us. But that's all it would take for me, Dennis. Just a plan to go. And I would love to come to California. So not much. Just the time and
tickets are cheap.
Yeah. And if I come out, I want to go to both an Angels and a Dodgers game. So that would be fine. I would do that. So not a whole lot. I would do it. It's just a matter of sitting down and planning it out, I guess. From Atomic. This one's for you, Zach. Once Star Wars Land opens up at Disneyland, will the Star Wars fans be just as or more annoying than the goth kids that show up during Haunted Mansion Holiday? Speaking of California.
I mean, no, because I mean, I'll be there as much as I can be. I think it's going to be the initial wave of people is going to be. I don't even want to say interesting. I don't know how it's going to be because this is the first time that Disneyland itself, like they've done it in California Adventure, but that's kind of been little bits and pieces, and they've always been kind of underwhelming. Cars Land's cool, but it only has one ride, so everyone would go into the one thing. Star Wars Land is going to be so much different, especially because it's Star Wars and not any of the other things they put in recently. I don't know. I mean, they're building a new parking lot that's probably not going to be ready by the time Star Wars Land opens. They're trying to increase the restrictions and increase the rate of the annual passes to try and squeeze some people out so that there's less people that will show up. And I don't know. And I think the thing is, with me at the very least, I know that I'm going to, like, if I in the initial stages of it, I'm going to just go there and be in that part of the park, and that's it. I don't need to go to the rest of Disneyland at that point. I'll just live the experience that is Star Wars Land.
I think if Cedar Point put in a just a Star Wars exclusive place, that's probably what I would do too. I would just go to that.
Well, but like, have we talked about this on the show? What they're doing out there?
No,
it's not just the same thing as like Tomorrowland or Adventureland or something where it's like, oh yeah, there's rides and themes and whatever. No, it's the idea is when you go through the entryway, it's a lived-in experience. Like there's not going to be any advertisement. All the signs are going to be there's going to be no like here. There's not going to be like a big entryway like this is the Millennium Falcon ride. It's just going to be like this is the thing over here. The market is going to be living. It's like you are being transported to the Star Wars world, and you're just going to be living in it. And so like the idea is that like if you go to the local cantina, depending on how good or bad you do on the Millennium Falcon ride, say you do really well as the pilot, you might have some sort of smuggler come by and be like, hey kid, I could use you on my next flight out to Coruscant or whatever.
Wow.
Or if you do really badly, somebody will come up to you. There's a bounty hunter will be like, there's a price on your head.
So this thing's gonna be pretty immersive then, basically.
Right.
Like, yeah.
Like when you go into a restaurant, there's not going to be any labels that say Coca-Cola or Sprite or whatever. It's just gonna be there. You can ask for it, but it's not going to be listed because they're trying to immerse you in these. The gift shops are going to be like, the idea is that there's somebody working there that is building all these toys or whatever. It's cool. Going to be this immersive experience where you're going to live out a Star Wars.
Well, okay, we got to back up for a second then. Back to Dennis's first question about coming out for an Angels game. Okay. Two things. First, I want Mike to come out too. And secondly, we've got to do it when this thing opens and just make a whole big ordeal out of it. Yeah.
Supposed to open late next summer.
Yeah, so there you go. That's all it would take, Dennis. Again, going back is, I'm going to invite Mike along too, and then, just, say the word. I'll be there.
Yeah. And honestly, to one more thing about Atomic's question, the goth kids aren't the thing that bother me. I honestly hate the children of Disneyland more than anything else, but those stupid bubble guns. Oh my God, these are the worst fucking things. They sell these bubble ones, and if you're a child under 5, you get them, and they just have their button pressed on the bubble thing all day long. Yep. So there's a trail of bubbles that you just keep walking into. And
they got Cedar Point
people are in a crowd and they don't know that you can't just stop in the middle of a flowing crowd and people. Anyway, sorry.
Another question from Atomic. Is the trend of having food-based alternate uniforms logos getting out of hand? I'm going to take that a step further. I think that alternate uniforms, period, are getting out of hand, and especially in the minor leagues, but particularly in the minor leagues, I should say. Yeah, definitely out of hand.
Minor league baseball, that's kind of the charm of it, is all the stupid stuff. But everybody has their food-based alternate uniform now, and it's like, be innovative. Like, it was cool the first couple times, and there are people that like the New York Pizza Rats thing is a new twist on it. But like when Fresno did it with the tacos, that was huge. That was a cool thing. Find your own taco. Like, don't just. Well, now we're the cheesesteaks and we're the hot dogs. Like, no.
Yeah, I think it's all gotten out of hand. I think that it's too much. It loses its what's the word I'm looking for? It takes the fun out of it when it's happening all the time everywhere. There's a word, I can't think of what it is, but
it's not unique or special.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mike, any thoughts on that?
I think minor league baseball's branding in of itself has just gotten far too samey and repetitive. Between all of the brandios and all the brandios, everyone doing the same kinds of alternates from like Seinfeld night, Star Wars night, like wacky food alternate, like it's all, and I understand that that's kind of the charm of minor league baseball. And I'm not necessarily saying they all need to go super traditional, but like, I would like to see Major League Baseball branding as a whole just kind of slow down and reevaluate itself.
Yeah, I mean, I don't mind the occasional, specialty jersey night or whatever, but there are times too when say if I want to go see the Toledo Mud Hens, I want to see the Toledo Mud Hens. I don't want to see the Toledo Star Wars Mud Hens, which they just did a Star Wars game a couple weeks ago, where it's like always something. I mean, come on, let's, a little more isn't always better, I guess is what I'm saying.
I think I had this argument before when they did the Little League jerseys in MLB last year.
Yeah.
Imagine if it's like you get to go to Yankee Stadium one game a year, and you're going to bring your kid, and it's your kid's first time going to Yankee Stadium to see the Yankees at home in their pinstripes. Except they're not wearing pinstripes; they're wearing like a pullover Little League, light blue, dark blue script jersey.
Yeah.
Wouldn't be the same thing.
Yeah, it's getting out of hand, the whole thing. And that's not to say that I want it to go away, but they need to dial it back quite a bit. Mike, I guess this is more up your alley again. What advice would you give Vince McMahon so he doesn't run XFL 2.0 into the ground?
I would say...
I'd say just be patient.
I mean... Yeah. I
be patient and let it be fun.
Yeah.
Don't be too serious about it.
Right.
Because it seems like they're going to be a little too serious about it and not just kind of let it be what it could be.
This is the odd thing because like I think I'm firmly of the opinion that any alternate football league is destined to failure. Like I don't think there's a way to do it. It's been tried too many times. The only team that actually successfully pulled it off was the AFL, and that was back in the 60s, and there were a variety of factors why that worked.
Yeah, and that's a ton of markets that were ready and, were NFL ready. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
You had NFL ready markets that weren't being served. You had the explosion of television. So you had top flight networks that wanted content. And because of the limited number of NFL teams, you still had a lot of talented players coming out of college who needed places to play. Like all of the factors were right to allow the AFL to work, and it did. The USFL, I think, was the last gasp. Like, I honestly think that if the USFL had never tried to play in the fall, like it might even still be around. But
so if Donald Trump wasn't around,
basically, yes. Well, don't let me. I'm just gonna let that one float there. But basically, like.
Yeah, screwing up a league wasn't good enough for this guy, was it? I can do better.
so like my advice would be like, don't like XFL, like just don't do the XFL. But if it's going to happen, I would agree with you, Zach. Like, make it fun. I would really stress like, don't go head to head with the NFL, which it doesn't look like they're going to do, which is good. I'd also say, like, unlike the first time that he tried the XFL, like, don't try to take pot shots at the NFL. Don't try to punch up, because it just makes you look like a petty asshole, and it makes you look stupid when you inevitably don't have as good a product.
Yeah, and you're throwing marshmallows at a brick wall, too.
Yeah, I mean, we've talked about it before, about how, like, the NFL's perceived vulnerability isn't really all that much of a factor because they still dominate the sports market by a wide margin in North America. But I would say that, like, I'd also say don't fall into the trap of thinking that, like, you can make the XFL succeed by being, like, a response to the NFL, like, oh, the NFL isn't doing this, and this, and the XFL will do all these things. Like, don't worry. I guess I would say to Vince McMahon, don't worry about what the NFL does or doesn't do. Like, just focus on making the XFL stand on its own as its own unique thing. And
is it going to be a spring league this time?
Not quite. And this is actually another thing I'd say to him. While I'm happy that they're not going head to head with the NFL, I'm disconcerted. I'm a bit put off by the fact that he wants to start it like a week or two after the Super Bowl. which I don't think would work because, like, I think collectively the Super Bowl is kind of like the celebration of the end of football for the year. So
yeah, I would just say that be your own league. Like Mike said, don't try to. This is what the NFL doesn't do, so this is what we're going to do. Make it fun, like Zach said, but not too. Don't go too far in that direction, though. Where
you don't want to be goofy, but
yeah.
Which you could argue the first XFL was too fun. Like,
yeah, just understand what you are, and that on the off chance, the 1 in gazillion chance that you could take out the NFL, it's not going to happen in 5 years. It's going to take 30. So just be patient and play the long game and see what happens. And if you end up being a viable, like, in between college and NFL level league that people enjoy watching, I think that's a pretty good niche to carve out for yourself. You could do a lot worse.
Also, another thing I would say to Vince is if you see an article online that says, like, the 10 things the XFL needs to do to survive, don't read it because it's inevitably going to be wrong.
From SF Giants 58, Mike, what is the strangest answer you've received from a student during a class discussion or on a test?
Well, I once had a student be unable to tell me what European country looked like a boot.
Oh, wow.
I have also had a case where, while proctoring an exam that included a map where students had to list list locations on the map, a student asked me, and there's a map of Europe, asked me what part of the map was the water. Those were probably the ones that immediately come to mind. I also, this isn't an answer per se, like because it wasn't a test, it was an essay. But I once read an essay that started with Hitler was a bad man.
Well, thanks for that.
Was that along the lines of the University of North Carolina Rosa Parks paper?
Comparable. So those are a few notable ones.
Okay. Oh, this one's for me. What software do you use to assemble bass? We record it with Skype. It's an add-on you can get with Skype called Skype Call Recorder. It's edited on Audacity and assembled via GarageBand. Zach, what is the worst thing that Artie has done to the Angels? Can I answer this first?
Go for it.
Buy them.
Well, okay. Here's the weird thing, right? So when Artie did buy the Angels, initially it seemed like everything was good because, yes, there was a down year after they did win the World Series. But then after Artie bought the team, that ushered in the Vladimir Guerrero era, the Bartolo Colon era, Torrey Hunter, a period of unprecedented, sustained success where the team was winning AL division title or AL West titles, and they were consistently competitive, trading for Mark Teixeira, winning 90 games, 95 games, looking like a team that could well win the World Series if it weren't for the fucking Boston goddamn Red Sox every goddamn time.
Yep.
And, for the first 6 years, not bad. Problem is, the last 9 years, right? And so, I mean, there's the two things that stick out to me, of course. The number one is, they're not the Los Angeles fucking Angels. They're not. They're not. They haven't been.
No.
Yes, they do. They are. Yes, I know. They are the Los Angeles American League franchise. I get it. I know that they played in fucking Chavez Ravine. I get it. Yes, their fan base extends somewhat into Los Angeles County. Yes, I get it. But I bet, like, Anaheim on its own has now become with the help of the Angels to an extent, with the help of the Ducks, with the help of Disneyland, Anaheim on its and just population growth as a whole, Anaheim is a city name that you could put out there and be okay with. I think so. Yeah. It's not something that they could be ashamed of or considered small town or considered small time, that they're not good enough, that they're not big enough, that they're not any of that. No, they're never going to be like, even now that they've called themselves Los Angeles, they're never going to be Los Angeles. And there was early talk, around the time of the name change, around when then again when the lease was was coming up, that maybe they would try to find space in Los Angeles to move to.
Why would you do that?
Because Artie was determined to make the to build the inroads. And there are people that would argue that because they become the Los Angeles Angels, they have become more marketable, they have become all this other stuff. But here's the other fun fact about that little argument. No one calls them the Los Angeles Angels. And even when they're marketed, they are Angels baseball. Yep. When highlights are shown on ESPN, they say, and we go out to Anaheim, well, and everyone understands the gambit. Nobody calls them the LA Angels because they're not a Los Angeles team. They might have started out that way, but after the initial, 4 or 5 years at most, before Artie Chinatri moved them down to Anaheim and changed them into the California Angels.
Well, yeah, and they won the World Series as the Anaheim Angels.
Right.
I agree with you. I mean, I understand the logic behind it, but you're not a Los Angeles team. I would get it if they were the only team in that market. Sure. Okay, fine. Yeah, that's great. But you're not, and you're never going to supplant the Dodgers. So what's the point? And
then the other thing is, he's gotten too involved. Albert Pujols worked out at the beginning, and now he's slowing down. But that was something that was engineered by Artie. And I'm okay with Albert Pujols on the whole. But that was a ridiculous contract to hand out to anyone. But the one that has killed the Angels.
Yep, I know which one you're going to bring up, too. And
Josh Hamilton.
Josh Hamilton. What a colossal waste of money.
And at the time, it was widely reported that contract was handed to Josh Hamilton by Artie Moreno. Not in the GM at the time. I think it was Jerry Dipoto at the time. Did not want to give that deal out.
I don't blame him.
That we want to sign it. Yeah.
You hear teams talk about it all the time in all sports. A bad free agency deal like that can set you back 5 to 10 years.
The best thing an owner can do is, if he finds himself disagreeing with management, is to back up and say to management, "You're right. Do what you need to do."
Okay. Yeah. This is for all of us, I guess. In general, what failed expansion team, for example, the Indianapolis Aeros, the St. Louis Stallions, or relocation, do you wish it happened? Or no, these didn't happen, but we wish it
didn't go through.
Oh, I see. Okay.
The Saskatchewan Blues.
From St. Louis?
The St. Louis Blues in the 80s almost moved to Saskatoon in Saskatchewan. I'm also going to say the St. Louis Stallions, because if that had happened, then the Rams never would have left L.A., and we could have avoided all of the drama that happened with that.
That's an expansion team, right?
Yeah, the Stallions were a failed expansion team from the class that ultimately became the Jags and the Carolina Panthers.
I'll throw Baltimore into that mix, because Baltimore was another city that was up.
Baltimore Bombers.
I think it was the Jacksonville, Carolina expansion. The NFL basically told Baltimore, don't trip over yourselves and you will get an NFL team. Mm-hmm. And Baltimore basically tripped over themselves. I mean, it was theirs to lose, and they did. And if they don't do that, they get the Bombers, and more likely than not, the Browns are still the Cleveland Browns.
Ultimately, that expansion class is really interesting because the NFL was practically ready to give it to St. Louis and Baltimore and have the Stallions and Bombers come in. And then Baltimore tripped over themselves, and so they gave it – and so then that slot went to Carolina.
Oh, I thought Jacksonville got Baltimore and Carolina got St. Louis, I thought. Or was it the other way around?
It was the other way around. Okay. Because then the NFL was like, all right, so Constellation, still not bad. We'll give it to St. Louis and Carolina. And then St. Louis tripped over themselves, and then they were kind of forced to go to Jacksonville as the last resort.
And then, just to make it even more fun, the next time around, Los Angeles was basically told, you'll get the next team, and they tripped over themselves and we ended up with the Houston Texans.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If the Rams were still in St. Louis right now, that'd be the easy one to pick, because that seemed so predestined that it was going to happen. And then I remember the shock here when it didn't go through, just because we were so ready to have the team back. When it comes to expansions, I can't think of any expansions that didn't go through. I mean, I guess you could say Quebec, but relocation that I wish would have happened, Hamilton Predators.
Oh, yeah, that would have been great.
I actually think that would have been really, really fun, and we wouldn't have to deal with Smashville anymore.
No, we wouldn't.
Does anybody know who the Indianapolis Arrows ended up becoming? Tell me it wasn't one of the Florida teams.
I think it would have been either Colorado or Miami.
Wow, Indianapolis would have been a much better baseball market than either Tampa or Miami.
A couple other ones. Another one that's interesting, and I don't know if I'd say I wouldn't be like I'm mad that this didn't happen, because I love my Blue Jays and they are probably my single favorite team in all sports. But it would have been interesting to see if the San Francisco Giants had moved to Toronto in the 70s, like they were going to.
Well, yeah, and then they were going to move to Tampa in the 80s, and I think Oakland was a couple times. They were ready to move a couple times too, and it never came through, which I think is look, I would love to see Oakland build a stadium and support that team and stay there, but I just don't see it happening. Mighty Mouse, this is from Broken Record on the boards. Mighty Mouse versus Adam Ant in a street fight. Who wins?
I don't know, Mighty Mouse, because he's the only one that I can picture in my head. I don't think I've ever seen Adam Ant.
Adam Ant was an old Hanna-Barbera cartoon, I believe. I'll go with Adam Ant just because I've watched his cartoon and liked it better than Mighty Mouse, so I'm going to go Adam Ant.
I'm going to go with Mighty Mouse.
These are all questions from the email, private messages, and Facebook. Who is your all-time favorite player in each of the Big Four sports? I'll add NASCAR for Greg. That's the first part. It's a two-parter. And then the second part is who is your all-time favorite player, period?
I'll go. Favorite hockey player is obviously Teemu Selanne. Favorite basketball player? As a kid, it was actually Karl Malone. But probably Kobe. And even though I didn't see Magic play, I mean, there's no way to not like Magic Johnson. So,
right.
One of those great all-time Lakers. I can't really go wrong there, really. Football is Peyton Manning. We've had that discussion, and even honestly, I think no matter what the Rams do in their history, I don't think nobody will supplant Peyton Manning as my favorite football player of all time. And then for baseball. Who's my favorite? I don't want to say Mike Trout because he's still active.
I'm surprised none of you said wasting Mike Trout's career as well.
Well, we could have gone on about the Angels for a good long time, but
actually, okay, no, my favorite baseball player of all time is Garrett Anderson.
Ooh, good call.
Old GA with the Angels. Just a silent but deadly type.
He was a good ball player. Good ball player.
He was a great ball player.
Yes, he was.
It's a freaking travesty that they haven't or have no plans to retire that guy's number.
Yeah, because he was a vital part of those teams for a lot of years. Mike?
Hockey there are a lot, but I'm going to go with Curtis Joseph.
Okay.
Not the reason I became a goalie, but he was the goalie for the Leafs when I was like 12, 13, 14 and really starting to get into competitive hockey, so that he holds a special place in my heart. Plus, he signed a jersey of mine, which I have framed.
Yeah, we heard about the jersey last week when I asked you why you didn't have a Cujo jersey. It's right.
Yep, I've got it hanging on the wall. So Cujo for our hockey. Baseball, Carlos Delgado.
Cool.
Easily. The Daniel Tomlinson for the San Diego Chargers.
All right.
LT, one of my favorites too.
Basketball. That one's tough.
Vince Carter.
I was gonna say, no matter. I know the Raptors, Vince Carter relationship didn't end on the best of notes, but you know what, Vince Carter was so vital to 13, 14-year-old me and my love of the Raptors, and Vince Carter put that team on the map. Like, you wouldn't have We the North without Vinsanity. So Vince Carter all the way.
Okay.
Also, Vince Carter, if he were still playing for the Raptors and in his prime, would have at least bothered to fucking show up when they played the Cavs. So, there you go.
At least would have tried to go meet LeBron midair or something.
Right.
Yeah, you know.
For me, my all-time favorite player in each sport: football, Joe Montana; basketball, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar; baseball, Reggie Jackson; hockey. Boy, it's tough. It goes back and forth. Probably Mark Messier, but there's a lot of days where it's Wayne Gretzky, but I'm going to say Messier overall is my favorite hockey player. And I'll throw the NASCAR one in there, too. My favorite NASCAR driver is probably all-time David Pearson, who was, like, for 10-year-old Greg, was a big deal. All right, we ready to move on?
Sure.
Oh, this is okay. Yeah, this is the question I debated. Like, do I want to talk about this or not?
Oh, let's do it.
This is for you. It's for me. I'll answer it as best I can. If you don't mind my asking, what is it like to have a heart attack? And did it change your approach to life? I'll understand if you don't want to answer these questions. What's it like to have a heart attack? Nothing like you would expect, if that makes any sense. It wasn't. The funny thing about it is it was the last thing I thought was happening to me. I went through the whole story back when it happened. I'll say it again. Were it not for a couple of really incredible breaks and the pure genius on display at Cleveland Clinic, I don't know if I'm standing here talking to you guys right now, but it was more like I had heartburn really bad is what it felt like.
Didn't you come out of it healthier than when, like, before you had the heart attack?
I did. In fact, yes. Did it change my approach to life? Now, that's an interesting question. I wish I could say that it did. That you have this, like, oh my God, I've got to do everything differently now. And you do for a little bit, and maybe it's just me. I don't, you'd have to ask other people to compare, but it is remarkable how quickly you kind of move past. Well, I shouldn't say quickly. It takes a little while to move past it, but once you do, it just becomes this thing that happened to you. It isn't like something that, I don't like go around and go, oh my God, the flowers are so beautiful now because I'm still alive. None of that really happened. So I hope that answers your question. But it changed my life a lot in certain ways, but in other ways, not at all. Best I can tell you. Zach, do you think you're more passionate as a fan of the Rams than you were with the Colts?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, trust me. I not to say that I was unpassionate about the Colts. I really got into those Brady Manning debates over the years. And I mean, you guys know that we've had this fight plenty. But as we've talked about plenty of times before now too, it's just different when it's your hometown team.
Yeah. And
especially that it's a team that was here before, the one that played in Anaheim.
Yeah.
And the other, I think the thing that's helped too is that, the first year was tough, but we were all just excited to have him back. But the fact that in the second year they were division champions and it looks like they're a Super Bowl contender in year 3, it changes the whole game. They're a hometown team and they're good right out the bat and they're playing in the Coliseum and they have a bunch of guys that I like. They have a coach that I'm really excited about. They have a quarterback that is personable, if not an idiot. And Todd Gurley is just an incredible talent. So it's just,
and they're a fun team to watch.
There's a lot. Exactly. If they were just as bad as they were in St. Louis, it'd still be pretty tough. And I'd probably tell you Colts, but they've done a lot very, really quickly to ignite that fandom in me and many around Southern California. So easily the Rams, I think.
Basically the same question for me is, do I think I'm as passionate as a fan / owner of the Packers as I were of the first Browns? Absolutely not. Not even close. I don't know that I'll ever be as passionate about any team. Maybe my 80s Lakers, but those 80s Browns and, that was like the team of my youth and, and then like the height of my sports fandom. No, it's not even close. And I don't think even if the Browns had never left, I don't think I would still be at the level I was back then. So no. Not even close to the same. Not at all. Mike, do you think you're as passionate about the Chargers as you would be about an NFL team in Toronto? So basically a Zach situation.
See, I thought about this. I gave thought about this, especially when it looked like the Bills were testing the waters.
Right.
And that never happened because it turned out not enough Canadians were passionate about it. We didn't quite understand your strange ways. Like, I remember the funniest anecdote was Buffalo fans coming up for the game and tailgating outside of, tailgating as close as they could to the Rogers Center. And Canadians just not understanding tailgating. Like, we were like, why don't, they sell food in the stadium, And it's like, it was so, it was a bit of a culture clash. But I did think about this, and I told myself that I would probably stick with the Chargers, but I think Zach's right that it's just different when it's your hometown.
Okay, now the second part of this is, would you become a fan of an NFL team if it relocated to Toronto? Say, like, if the
Bills had the Toronto,
or if the Bills.
I honestly think, I think I'm agreeing with Zach there. Like, it's just again, I'd feel bad for, like, Buffalo, but at the same time, I want to sit here and tell you that I'd be a Chargers fan. But I honestly think, it's different when it's your hometown team. Again, like, I grew up 45 minutes outside of Toronto. So
I think the counterpoint I would give to that, though, Mike, is because I thought about this too, because we had plenty of different opportunities over the years. Mm-hmm. If it were the Jaguars that had relocated to LA, I jump on as a fan, but I don't think it would be the same.
Yeah, because you got essentially the Los Angeles Rams. They just came back home.
We got the team that we all wanted.
Right, and the team that you used to have.
Rather than just a team.
Yeah.
We got the team.
Like, if I think it would depend on a lot of things. If, for example, as shallow as it is, like, if I don't know, this gets into a whole other thing about the CFL versus the NFL, but I don't know, the Bills moving. I think I'd gravitate to them eventually, just because, when you grow up in Southern Ontario and you watch NFL football, you're stuck with either Bills or Lions games. And so, like, I'm not a Bills fan, but I've certainly watched plenty of Bills games.
See, I think that
I don't know.
If it were the Bills that moved to Toronto, you would have an easier time with it, because first off, Buffalo fans would still be able to follow their team relatively easily. Whereas, let's say the Phoenix Cardinals, Arizona Cardinals moved to Toronto, I don't know that one's going to stick as well with the fans of Toronto as, say, Buffalo would, if that makes sense. Because it's just, you're geographically, Toronto is close enough to Buffalo where it wouldn't be like you were just robbing a city of its team, whereas anywhere else. This question made me realize something. I mean, I'm pretty lucky when it comes to this, because I got an expansion team back when my team moved, so I didn't have to steal someone else's team. I didn't get the
but
team.
it still wasn't your team.
But it's still not my team. That's the hard part. Looks like, well, not even, it doesn't look like them anymore, but
they did though.
They did though, but it just was never the same. And and when I got the Packers stock, that gave me a vested interest in them. And I just don't see myself ever fully going back. I still consider myself a Browns fan, but it'll never ever be like it was the first time around. All right, moving along. You are allowed to make one final post on CCSLC. It can't be a farewell post. It has to be about either sports or uniforms. What do you say in your final post?
Well, when we say farewell post, is it not a blaze of glory?
It can't be. I guess I'm assuming it can't be like okay, I'm leaving, goodbye. It has to be just a straight up post about
a blaze of glory post. Everyone sucks. See ya.
Yeah, we can't. Yeah, we can't do a blaze of glory. It has to be a legitimate post.
Needs stripes.
This, of course, would be in reference to the Sharks uniforms.
Or, yes. Or mine either has to be that, or what is this? I'm in phone. or some variation of what is this? I'm in phone.
See, those are good. Mine was. I thought about it. And I thought I would sit down and I would carefully write out my blue pinstripe suit manifesto, where I explain why new uniforms aren't as good as classic uniforms because of the blue pinstripe suit theory or whatever you call it. Where I would explain that a blue pinstripe suit, while having minor changes over the years, always looks about the same and always looks good. And that's why classic uniforms always look great, because they're the blue pinstripe suit, whereas you get things like what Tampa Bay has done or Jacksonville, which are essentially parachute pants or 70s leisure suits. Blue pinstripe suit manifesto, that's what I would do.
I would go into detail, a manifesto, if you will, to go along with what Greg said, but it would be about why gray face masks are superior to all other face mask colors. Gray face masks are fantastic.
Yes, they are.
And all the football teams should wear them.
I won't go that far, but I'm with you. They are great. Okay.
So, yeah, there you go.
I mean, right. to make a real one, I would probably have a long post about either the Mighty Ducks logo or the LA Anaheim debate.
Oh,
I do like the neat stripes, or I'm in phone. Stick work may injure you. One of those would be great. Okay, moving along. I thought these next two were interesting. You have to spend a week wearing the uniform of a superhero everywhere you go. Who do you choose and why?
Everywhere you go.
Like every day that you get up and leave the house, you have to wear your superhero outfit.
Oh, Iron Man.
Mike?
I'm tempted to say Iron Man, but
it's very functional.
It's very functional.
Gets you places.
Yeah.
Iron Man's probably a cop-out because that is his powers.
Let's see.
That's what I was going to go with, Iron Man, because first off, it's just a badass-looking uniform, whatever you want to call it. And
I've got one. So this, I think, is more in spirit of the question, and it's completely fucking bonkers.
No, I'm going as Captain Canada. Screw that.
Oh, Captain Canuck?
Yeah.
Oh, Captain Canuck.
If we're not going to use like Iron Man, but just actually like costumes, like say Batman, or I'm going to go Captain America.
I would go the original Green Lantern.
No, Mike, not the original Green Lantern.
That is a stylish fucking outfit.
He's got a cape, dude. Come on. That's a Lando Calrissian cape there, man.
Look at that collar.
That would hang in Lando's cape closet with pride, baby. Come on.
Oh yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah, I'm going Captain America, or the original, not that original, but the Green Lantern wouldn't be a bad one either.
I mean, come on. You got the billowy swashbuckling shirt. You got come on. That's a cool outfit.
The original Green Lantern. Oh my God.
Okay. Keeping in this motif, you have to spend a week wearing the uniform of a professional sports team everywhere you go, and it cannot be one of your teams. Who do you choose?
Can't be one of our teams.
Can't be one of our teams.
Full uniform.
Full uniform. I'm going to go with my beloved blue and white Rams uniforms.
My mind keeps going to baseball uniforms because those are the ones that are like normal clothes.
I'd go with your guys, Anaheim Angels of Anaheim, Los Angeles, Orange County, whatever we're calling them.
Actually to return the favor, the Blue Jays. There you go. Blue top.
I'm the only one that's walking around looking like an idiot in a full football uniform. Okay.
Well, I can't pick a full hockey uniform because that's just impractical.
If I had to pick a basketball uniform, I'd probably, and it can't be one of my teams, I don't know, probably the white Jazz uniform from the 97-98 run, just because I rooted for them in those two finals. So
I'm going with either the Dr. J Nets or Dr. J era Nets jerseys or uniforms, or the year they won the title Bullets uniforms. Those are those two, the one I would go with. Yeah.
I'll go with the Heat's Miami Vice alternate.
Ooh, those are nice. Those are nice.
All right, let's move along here. Mike, this one's for you. What are the biggest differences between living in Canada and the U.S. that you've noticed so far?
I don't want to get too deep in the weeds on this one, but politics?
Okay.
I've said this before, and I'm not even going to get into a partisan side of it. I'm not going to get into that, but I'm just going to say that, like, it was really interesting because I was in a unique position because I moved about halfway between the Canadian federal elections of 2015 and the American presidential elections.
Right.
A bit closer to the American side of things, actually, but I moved in between those two. And so I was in Canada for the Canadian elections, and I was in the United States for the American elections. And, like, again, when the first debate in Canada came up, like, the commercial was like – the commercial advertising it was like – Prime Minister Stephen Harper, Leader of the Opposition Justin Trudeau, NDP Leader Thomas Mulcair, and Green Party Leader Elizabeth May meet to discuss the issues that we face as Canadians today. And then, like, for the American commercial, it was like, Hillary and Trump this Monday for the first time. Monday. And it was like, the fuck? Like, this is a debate? It sounded like a wrestling match. Like,
yeah, calm, measured discourse.
Yeah.
Oh, we gave up on that a long time ago down here.
That is one noticeable difference. And again, I don't want to get into, politics on it, but it was too big not to be mentioned.
Milk being in cartons rather than bags.
Which is fucking disgusting. You're all barbarians.
All right. Let's see. This is from our friend Kyle Moore. I believe he's the one that is not on the boards, but follows us on Facebook and Twitter and etc. With how big the cost of new stadiums and sports are nowadays, do you see a return to those old cookie-cutter stadiums in the NFL and Major League Baseball?
No way.
Nope.
The two sports are going for completely different feelings. And I don't think they're compatible, so you're probably never going to see a return to that cookie-cutter stadium.
I think beyond that, every single one of these teams is about controlling the revenue streams.
Right, and you would have to – you would lose – I think if you went to a multi-purpose stadium, both teams are losing potential revenue streams that they would have in their own personal stadium, and you're never going to get teams to agree to that in this day and age.
Yeah, because you're losing that. You're splitting concert dates. You're doing all that sort of stuff. Yeah, I think the field stuff and controlling all that is important to them, but only important to them insofar as controlling the revenue.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Let's see, where are we at here?
What is your favorite
sports memory?
2007, June 6th, 2007, Stanley Cup Finals, Game 5. Ducks beat Ottawa 6-2. Skate Lord Stanley's Cup around the ice.
I think that Zach knew the answer to that one pretty quick. How about you, Mike?
There's nothing that will ever compete with it.
This is going to be hard because a lot of my fandom is just pain.
I know the feeling, believe me.
Like, what am I going to say? Like,
yeah, you were probably too young for Joe Carter.
I was at that game, but I don't remember it.
Right.
I don't remember it.
When the Leafs drafted Austin Matthews.
Honestly,
when the Leafs signed John Tavares.
Well, now I'm going to different. Like, mine has nothing to do with championships or anything. My favorites. I've actually got two, and they're nothing to do with anything like that.
I would just say I'm going to get really sentimental here. Growing up as a little kid, watching Hockey Night in Canada with my dad, watching the Leafs versus the Habs, I being a Leafs fan, my dad having grown up in Montreal being a Habs fan, and just watching those Leafs-Habs games from like the 90s and early 2000s with my dad, just being like, this is awesome because it's this meaningful rivalry with like this person I love, and it was just really fond memories there.
That's exactly the same route I'm going. My first one is like everybody. I always tell people like my dad was a terrible dad. He only ever took me to one baseball game in my whole life, but I can't even begin to tell you the number of races he took me to. It was like an every weekend thing. We were at some drag strip or some track somewhere, but When I was about 10 years old, I was way, way, way into NHRA drag racing. I had posters of it on my wall. Just loved it. And there was this car called the Ram Chargers Funny Car. It was like my favorite car. And we drove to Marion, Ohio, which is in the middle of nowhere. They had a good drag. So they did this big NHRA event going on. And we get there, and this is in like 1970, mind you. And to go over to the pit side where the cars were was $10, which in today's money is like $50, I think. And I remember to this day, my dad going, "You only live once, let's go." And he took me over, and I got to see all my cars and all that, like up close in person. And that was really cool. My other one was my first NASCAR race in 2008 at Charlotte Motor Speedway, the Coca-Cola 600. Just hearing those guys come around that first turn the first time was like, holy shit. So those are my two. More like what to do with my dad, because, you know, my dad was the one that got me into the racing and all that. And the only drag about the NASCAR race is that my dad couldn't be there. I always wanted to go to my first race with him, but he died before we could do it. So,
yeah. Luckily for me, the Cup Championship is favorite like team success, but I also got to be there with my grandfather.
Right, yeah.
You know, the guy that I been going to games with since I was 3.
Right. How awesome is that? Yeah.
Yeah. I remember every single second of that entire day. And, that's why, like, if anybody, like, on the boards or listens to the show wonders why I'm such a big race fan, that's why. I grew up on it. I mean, that was what we did. Of all the jerseys you own, which this question was actually worded differently, but I changed it because it's silly to think that we don't own jerseys. It said, if you own jerseys. And I thought, well, of course we do. Of all the jerseys you own, which one is your favorite?
That's a tough one. But if I had to pick one, I would say it's my Maple Leafs. It's a Maple Leafs jersey. It is their alternate from the mid 2000s, the throwback alternate that they had.
Yeah.
And the reason I picked that is that it's not even necessarily my favorite Leafs jersey design-wise, although it is close. It's up there, but it's not my all-time favorite. But the reason why I like that is because the Leafs wore it during some of their best years in recent memory. And not only that, but it was, I believe it was actually the first jersey I bought myself. Like, I was just starting high school at the time, and I had gotten a part-time job, and I happened to be in the pro shop at my local rink, and I saw that they had this jersey there, and I had the money to buy it, and I was like, you know what? I'm going to buy it. And so that the first jersey I ever bought myself. So
cool.
That one.
Zach?
Man.
Say the Wild Wing alternate. Say it.
Well, okay. It's funny that you do say that, because that was my first jersey. I still have that. The one that I wore as a kid. Doesn't fit me anymore, obviously. But I don't know if that's my favorite one, because I have another favorite one that has a bunch of signatures on it, but I haven't worn it in years because I can't. It's, again, too small. It probably has to be my Temu jersey. My 2007 Ducks black Temu Solani jersey that I got him to sign on because I think the thing I like about that is the story of how I got him to sign it. And
gunpoint.
Well, I mean, anybody that knows Temu is that, you know, whenever, if you look for like autographed merchandise online or anywhere, you know, there's always the risk of, well, it's that's a fake, or it's printed on, it's not his actual signature. I will guarantee, like, Temu Solani has devalued his own autograph.
Yeah. There are guys
that
do that. They sign everything. Yeah.
He stays for hours and hours and signs, and he'll sign anything. But it's the Cup champion jersey. It's my Temu Solani jersey. It's, you know, I went every opening opening night, the Ducks have a thing where like they call it the orange carpet, where the players come in one by one or in sets of 3, and they're introduced to the crowd, and everybody lines up and signs their stuff. And it was the year. It was we kind of all knew that this was going to be Teemu's last year, and I wanted to get there on time, and I got there, and I realized, I got there, and some people had kind of cleared out. And I got there a little later than I wanted to, and I realized it kind of dawned on me like, maybe I missed them. Maybe I missed all the guys. Oh well, I'll just go into the team store here for a minute and kind of wander around because I got time to kill now because I'm here. Like I was late for that, but still very early for the game. And I'm kind of milling around, and then all of a sudden I start hearing some commotion going on outside. I'm like, what the hell? What's going on? What could people be looking at? I go out, and there's the man coming out of his limo. He showed up a little late, but he's there, and like everybody's like, "Oh my God, he's here!" And I'm like, "Where's my thing? Where's my?" He's like coming. He's like 5 feet away, coming down the pike here. And I'm like, "Shit!" Take off the jersey, and I just put my hand like underneath the number, and I just kind of stick it out there, like I'm 3 people deep, but I get my jersey like to the front. And kind of stick it out there, and he comes by, signs it with his TS and a bunch of scribbles, and I get it. I'm like, oh my God, this was great because I thought I had missed it, and sure enough, he was still there to do his thing. And when I have too many jerseys, there's too many Ducks jerseys especially, but when it comes to like if there's a big game. And the jersey that I've been wearing, like I have a thing where like, if we keep winning, I wear the jersey, until it loses.
Right.
But if there's a big game coming up, if it's a big night, it's something important, and I need the jersey with a little magic in it, I pull that one out.
Cool.
Because that's the one that I wore when they won the cup. And then I got Teemu's name on it later, and it's important.
My favorite is, wow, I don't have any really good stories like that or like Mike's, but I'd say like my sentimental favorite is my personalized Rangers jersey that my girlfriend got me because it was like we'd only been dating not that long, and she gets me a Rangers jersey with my name and number, and I was like, well, that's really cool. So that was very special to me. But if I had to pick an all-time favorite, it's probably my Cleveland Crusaders jersey, just because you don't see very many of them. And it's just a cool jersey, or my Kareem jersey would be my other one, my Kareem Lakers jersey, but probably my Crusaders jersey, just because it's the Crusaders. They don't exist anymore. I didn't think I had a chance in hell of ever getting one, and I got one, so probably that one for me.
Yeah, I think as I've gotten more and more jerseys, and I don't know if this is the same with you guys, that like the specialness of a single jersey is kind of like it's faded a little bit.
Yeah.
Like I whenever the Ducks get a new jersey, of course I'm going to get it, and I try to stay current and wear what they're wearing currently if I like it enough. But that's the only one that still has any sort of true meaning behind it, because the ones that I got as kids, I can't really wear, and I have them, I do have some cool jerseys. Like I have the Coyotes Kachina jersey, I have a Miracle on Ice jersey, I have some jerseys that I really think are neat, but that's the only one with any sort of.
Yeah, I've got an Nordiques jersey that I really like too, but yeah. Okay, what is your? Oh God, this could take all night. What is your favorite CCSLC memory?
Oh, geez.
Glendale City Council meetings.
Oh yeah, no, co-signed.
Yeah.
All right, I will make
I don't
this
think
quick.
there's any single event that has brought the community together where we watch games or there's jersey reveals, and that's the sort of stuff that brings the group together to comment on stuff. But the hilarity that was those city council meetings for the Coyotes.
And the greatest thing is that situation still isn't resolved, so we might get at least one more. And I'm praying that we do.
And we've gotten some great things out of that, like skating on the frozen blood of non-believers.
Oh my God, yeah, one of the great.
Which is a great one to break out every now and then.
One of the great lines of all time there was that one. Skating on the, what was it? The
frozen blood of the
non-believers. Right, exactly.
The woman who cried because of the fountains.
The fountains, the fact that the Coyotes are just as important as firefighters who died.
Yeah, the Johnny Rocket franchise owner, like
the University of Phoenix graduate.
The University of Phoenix graduate, yeah, or the fucking or the guy who the councilman who flat out admitted that he had fallen asleep during the proceedings, so he had to ask someone to repeat a piece of information. My God,
Well,
you could make a TV show out of this.
I have a few. One of my favorites was I went on this. I'd never won a post of the day ever, and I had been there for a long time, and then for some reason, within a week span, I got 3, and I don't know what happened, but all of a sudden, I'm of my 8 posts of the day, I got 3 of them within a 7-day span. So that was kind of cool. I got a real big kick out of when we realigned the calendar and that realignment.
Yeah,
thread.
that's another great one.
That was so much fun. And, Bring Back the Vet just posted one of the funniest things I've ever seen. It was when, I think it was October 17th, got killed in a car accident or something. It had just gotten so absurd, but it was
Today we are all October 17th.
Yeah, it was such great comedy that was going on at that point. That was another one.
Yeah.
I would probably another one, 50 Shades of Wolf Grey.
Yeah.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
50 Shades of Wolf, or an older one for old timers. Pill, professional logos, pro logos.
Right. I wasn't part of that one, but I know it. I've read it.
I don't. I'm not a professional. I'm just pro logos. I'm for logos.
Let me think. What was the other one that I really had a good? When we did the CCSLC as an HBO series, I got a kick out of too. I thought
That
it was
one
kind
was
of fun.
good. Yeah. Kenan Thompson as Charles might be the most inspired casting.
There's some Admiral's done so many things that are just him and Vet have come up with some gems over the years.
Admiral's Guide to the NFL. I don't know if you guys have seen that.
Yes.
It's a few years old, so it's a bit outdated, but if you get a chance, look it up. Yeah. It's great.
and God, we love you, Andy, but when Admiral put you on notice during the playoffs a few years ago, one of the great moments in the history of the boards. I'm sorry.
The last sentence I could still remember it. Golf. That's all you're allowed to watch now. Golf.
So there's that. But that was.
How will the Blackhawks come back from this devastating 2-1 deficit?
And I know that a lot of us old timers say that the boards are not as good as they used to be, but there were times where.
Another one that's still recent. Was it D? D. Scruggy. I believe gay marriage should only be between a man and a woman.
Right.
Or kind of the opposite, but then it kind of warps back around into entertaining is, if anyone's listening here and you're a CCSLC member, just go into the sports fanfic section and under concepts and just look around.
Oh, God.
Please don't.
Or as I call it, there before the grace of God go I society.
Like we are a niche community.
Oh, we're big time dorks with these guys. Whoa.
This is I've gotten into arguments about sock stripe width, and even I'm backing away from this one.
This is a place that we the mods and their wisdom just said, we're going to create this little corner over here for you guys, and they're going to put a big wall up, and you all just stay over there.
We built the wall. We made them pay for it.
And when it comes to board antics, just news or something, the Edge releases were the day of the Edge releases was a day to behold. Yeah, just because of everything coming down and all the opinions that we had.
We can't forget Tank's 15 minutes of fame. That got pretty good.
That got also another Tank one when he thought that he was dying and then he was just choking on spicy chicken.
And he was posting from the freaking emergency room.
He wasn't calling the dog the emergency.
He asked us first.
Should I do something about this?
Frank, if you can't breathe. Go to the doctor.
Then when he goes to the ER, he's like posting while he's at the ER. I'm like, oh my God. But yeah, geez, Tank. Like if we ever did the miniseries, Tank would have to have his own complete episode all by himself. Yeah. So lots of good memories on the board. So I don't know if I could pick one favorite, but there were a lot of good ones. Yeah.
I'm gonna go with Glendale City Council just for hilarious.
How about when Lee did the we're going to redo rap lyrics in Victorian English? That was pretty good.
Yeah. I mean, we have that. We have the Monica Basorti
the Monica
saga.
Basorti thread was another good one, yeah.
Which was hilarious during the HBO one where you cast Monica Basorti as Monica Basorti as a special guest star.
What was the one? It was Coyotes related. It was about the building. I can't remember the name of the thread.
The we should renovate jobbing.com arena.
Jobbing.com arena thread. That was another classic.
Lot.
Yeah.
Into a parking lot.
That's that's where skating on the blood of the unbelievers came from. Actually,
yeah. That was a class. I think most of these are in the gold mine. I'm pretty sure.
I remember Chris actually chimed in on that because that Coyotes fan was getting pissed off. He's like, "I asked for building renovation ideas, not turning it into a parking lot." And then Chris actually showed up and was like, "Well, technically, it is a renovation."
Well, that was what I kept doing to that poor bastard. I would go, so wait, so you're telling me then that. And it was like I would find like a different way every time I was saying we're going to tear the building down and rebuild it. And like I would say it a different way, and he kept like going, no, that's not what I mean. I'm like, so what you mean then is basically, then I'd say it again, and it went round and round and round for like 2 days. It was a lot of fun. But then of course we've had all the Blaze of Glory threads. There's so many I can't even remember.
Panhead.
Oh yeah.
Oh, that's a name I haven't heard in a long time.
Yeah. We don't see.
Wasn't he writing? He was trying to write a book.
He was trying to. He claimed he was using the boards as the basis for a book.
A Christian, like youth fiction. Book
Christian
about
YA
basketball. Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
Right.
I'm.
This good. You know
Best
what though? we haven't done anything like Lounge Report type in a long time, but maybe sometime this summer we should do another boards-based show. Not necessarily like a Lounge Report, but like something along the lines where we just, like we get people in and we talk about all this stuff, because this would be fun. Anyway, let's move on here. We're almost done. What are some video games that, because of nostalgia, you rate much higher than they should be rated?
Wayne Gretzky's 3D hockey for the NHL.
Oh, yes.
For the N64.
That game is stupid.
It's dumb. It's real dumb, but I love it.
I would have to say, like, everything that I ever played on the Intellivision was, way not nearly as good as we thought it was.
Intellivision, wow.
I was going to say Tecmo Bowl, but that's not true. Tecmo Bowl was awesome.
Super Tecmo Bowl on the Genesis is bloody sublime. So.
Yeah, so I don't know.
I forget the exact name. But again, these are all ones that they were the sports game I had as a kid. On the N64, it's like All-Star Baseball. I want to say like 96. Who the hell is I think it's not Ken Griffey Jr.
I know it was Ken Griffey. Yeah, it was in 64.
Yeah, but there were a couple games, and I don't remember the exact. I think A-Rod is on the cartridge, but the thing that always stuck out to me was for some reason Chuck Knobloch was the star for the Angels in that game, and I remember losing a lot with Mo Vaughn in that game as well.
All right,
I would say honestly Lion King for the Sega Genesis. Like, I played the hell out of that game when I was a little kid, and
I know exactly what you're talking about.
And
my cousin had that game. We played every time I went over. Yeah.
And I recently picked it back up again. I went on a retro gaming kick a few years back, and I purchased it as part of my new Genesis collection just because of that childhood nostalgia. And I popped it in, and it was like, no, I'm going to keep this on the shelf as a reminder of my youth, and that's what it is.
All right, let's move through these last two real quick and wrap this thing up. I lost my place. Hold on. Jeez, long fade. What's your favorite thread to see bumped to the top of the boards? Anything over 5 years old?
They put a limit on that stuff now, so it's kind of hard.
Yeah, we did. It automatically locks after 2 years, but I would always love to see, especially in the concept section, like some concept done like 5 years ago by some guy who's not even around anymore, and someone bumps it being like, I really like it, but maybe you should do this. It's like, no.
Well, there have been threads that were bumped that were so old that I'd be like, first I would think it was new. And I'd be like, I've got something to say about this. And I'd look and see that I'd already replied like 3 times 7 years ago, you know?
This was one of the factors why we put the 2-year limit in. Someone bumped a 13-year-old thread.
Yeah, I think I remember that. I think I even said that's got to be a record, right?
Yeah, I remember I popped in. Like, I didn't notice the date at first. I just saw this new thread, so I clicked on it, and I'm seeing all of these people like posting from like that I haven't seen. Like Lee's there, like all of these old timers like who were around before I was there, and I'm like, I haven't seen these. Like, are they back? And then it's like, no, it's from 2000. It's from like 2004. Like, why?
All right, and finally. This is from Wild Wing 64, friend of the show. Oh, that previous question was from Cosmic, another friend of the show, by the way.
Okay.
Are there any logos and or uniforms that you once really liked or really hated, but now hate or like instead? So, like, if we changed our view on anything significantly.
I'm going to start this off because there is one that jumps immediately to mind.
Okay.
You win, Zach. I like the Mighty Ducks logo.
Yes!
Well, that only took 6 years.
I'm sure I could think of others. Maybe I will over the course of this conversation, but that was the first one that popped into my mind, so that's where I'm at for now.
Wow. I don't know if I necessarily hated it when it first came out, but I wasn't a big fan of the Vikings' current look at first, but it really grew on me, and now I really like it. Let me think of one that maybe I went the other way on. I can't think of any I went the other way on, but that was like an example of one that I wasn't crazy about at first, and it really grew on me.
Another one that I can think of, which I guess kind of just speaks to the way that like your tastes change as you get older. Like, I remember when I was like 11. I was 11 when the Canucks went to their Orca uniforms.
Yeah.
And I thought they were like the coolest thing at the time. I thought the colors were cool, the logo was cool, it was this badass killer whale. And now I'm fighting with Morgo every fucking day on boards trying to convince him that the Orca is a train wreck of a logo, because it is. It sucks. 11-year-old me was stupid. Don't listen to him.
Zach?
I'm trying to think if there's any logos that I've hated. Or is it logos or uniforms?
Yeah, logos or uniforms. Yeah.
The Islanders fisherman.
Okay.
Like, I mean,
like you like it now and you didn't at first, or you liked it at first and now you don't like it?
You know what? It's a lot of those 90s, like, weird NHL uniforms that they went for. But they work. It's nostalgia to an extent, but that's not really it either, because I kind of always like those. I can't think of any off the top of my head.
Because I think that with people like us, I don't see a lot of, we don't change our opinions an awful lot.
Yeah, it's not like I see the Tampa Bay Bucks uniforms now and I say, hey, you know what? I can actually read them very nicely. So that font is good.
Right.
Those uniforms are probably the reason why I am not at least flirting with Bucks fandom, because when I moved to Tampa, I was like, you know what? If they were still wearing their previous look, I could see myself trying to get invested. But as silly as it sounds, I'm not rooting for a team that dresses like that.
That's not silly at all. Maybe to other people it is, but with us, it has to be that way. It cannot be any other way.
Yeah, because I'm the one that I'm going to have the most like thought on is probably in the NHL, and I can't think of anything that either I don't like.
Oh, I've got
that I'm warming up on, or ones that I like now, or even ones that I like and now I think are kind of like bad.
Another one.
I mean, the thing is, like, at worst, there's ones that I maybe thought were boring that I think are okay.
That's what I was just going to say. Like the Eagles uniforms, the current green they wear. It took me a long time. They went from like boring to not bad, but I wouldn't call that a drastic change. That was just like and it's another attrition thing too. Like you get 2 new bad uniforms and they move up. You know,
I would say another one. Is probably the Lady Liberty uniforms for the Rangers. For the longest time, I liked them as a kid. When I started posting on the CCSLC till only a few years ago, I always considered them one of like the great alternates. Now, I don't know. I kind of don't. I'm kind of not feeling them.
Well, on that note, guys, let's wrap it up and thank everybody for sending in all the questions. We hope we answered them to your satisfaction. Before we go, let me remind you can follow us on Twitter at Basically Sports, subscribe via iTunes, Stitcher, Spreaker, and the YouTubes, and, of course, you can follow us on Facebook. We'll see you next time. And, again, thanks for all the questions.
Later.
Adios.